Today we're going to be talking about the 1932 film Freaks by Todd Browning. This movie was pretty difficult to get through, I feel like. It pertains to a very big population of people who have physical disabilities or mental disabilities. A lot of this movie is pretty offensive, so I found it pretty hard to sit through for an entire hour. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Freaks is about a woman named Cleopatra who has no physical or mental disabilities. She's your average looking white woman, but she is in a secret relationship with Hercules, the strongman. And her goal is to make Hans, a very rich man with a physical disability, fall in love with her so that eventually she'll be able to poison him and get all of his inheritance. The problem I have with summarizing this film is it's really hard to hone in on one character that this film is about. I feel like the movie tries to showcase so many different characters because they want to highlight all of the characters with mental or physical disabilities that you really get lost in who you're supposed to be focusing on. I think it comes together towards the end. You realize this really is about Cleopatra and Hans. But throughout the whole movie, you're kind of sitting there like, is this about her or him or the group in general? A lot of degrading scenes in this film that deal with the people who do have mental or physical disabilities, and those scenes are incredibly hard to sit through comfortably and really tell yourself, like, I have to sit through the rest of this because this is an hour-long movie of a general degradement by Cleopatra and Hercules. They just think that they're better than them because they don't have any mental or physical disabilities, so you watch them put them down repeatedly. Even Cleopatra calls them sick and vile freaks, and it's difficult to sit and watch someone just vividly degrade somebody like that. And it would be different if it was a joke, I guess, but in the movie, you know that these are things that these people with mental or physical disabilities have gone through, and they actually have to deal with that in their daily lives with people calling them monsters. So I really do not like the idea of this movie in general, because it is really hard to watch someone be degraded on film, whether it's supposed to be for entertainment or just to be harsh. It's really difficult. At the end of this movie, because it was a little confusing on what I was supposed to be looking at, I ended up looking some of the film up, and on Wikipedia I found that the main actress who plays Cleopatra actually went on set and was describing that it was really hard to look at these people without throwing up, but she obviously got used to them because she made a whole film with them. And while she was on set, they would have to have the people with mental or physical disabilities eat in a different cafeteria than those who didn't have mental or physical disabilities, saying that people who didn't have mental or physical disabilities would throw up at the sight of those who did have those issues. So the reality of this film being made is pretty harsh, and I can't get behind the making of this film. Although I have a huge problem with the degrading parts of this film, I think there is some kind of wholehearted idea behind normalizing the daily functions of any human being, whether they have disabilities or not. You can see a lot of those ideas explained in this film. One of those being that the Siamese twins have their own sex lives apart from being connected. So you can see that they're still engaging in normal sexual activities as much as any other person would. And you can also see it with the bearded lady. In the film, she ends up having a kid, and that is something that you would see from any other human being. So I appreciate that they do try and highlight the commonalities between those with and without mental or physical disabilities. It's a nice part of the film, but it can't make up for any of the degrading moments in this film. Because in describing that wholeheartedness, there's a scene in this film at the very end where those with the mental and physical disabilities are trying to catch Cleopatra and the strongman because they want to get revenge for what Cleopatra and the strongman have tried to do. And in this scene, they have those with mental and physical disabilities in a very dark, stormy background and carrying knives in their mouths or hands and guns in their hands. And it really is portraying them out to be monsters. The whole film, you're sitting there watching these people be called monsters while they're standing up for themselves and being a group and being a family, trying to explain that they're not monsters and they're just like everyone else. So I feel like that scene was pretty misplaced and poorly done. The dealing with of people's mental or physical disabilities is a really challenging thing to do without offending anybody. Although it's been done a few times, obviously, in Freaks. And it was also done by Ryan Murphy in American Horror Story's Freak Show. American Horror Story's Freak Show has a lot more horror in it, so it kind of falls into a different category than this film. And this film really highlights a lot of those degrading moments in a really bad way. There is a scene where Hans is put on top of Cleopatra's shoulders and she parades him around like a little show pony, and it's really difficult to sit and watch that scene when you're thinking, like, I wish that I could do something because this is very wrong. But it also goes with the idea that in 1932, filmmakers were kind of making whatever they wanted and were getting away with it because there weren't a whole lot of rules in filmmaking. I mean, there's a scene in this movie where a man punches a woman in the face. I mean, the strong man, Hercules, punches a woman in the face because she's looking at him or someone tells him that she had a crush on him. And the idea of being young and being able to sit there and watch that film is pretty intense. This film is technically classified as a horror genre film, but it really doesn't have those qualities that a horror genre film would have. When we mentioned horror genre in class, we talked about body functions, and one of those body functions could be crying or screaming or feeling uneasy in general, but this film doesn't really give you any of that. You aren't left feeling scared or creeped out or like you want to run away, so this film is kind of misclassified. The story behind this is that she's going to marry him and take his money after she kills him kind of thing, which is such a drama-filled story that it's unfair to classify this movie as a horror just because of the cast. Overall, I really don't enjoy this film. I really cannot get past the idea of degrading someone on film for an hour and degrading a whole group of people on film for an hour because of something they absolutely cannot control. And I knew from the beginning of this film that it was going to be pretty hard for me to enjoy because there's a scene where a man, just two side characters, are walking through and they're talking about how these people who have mental or physical disabilities should have been smothered at birth because of their condition. And that was an immediate turnoff for me. Aside from that, this movie has a lot of foreshadowing, which makes the whole film pretty predictable. See it when a certain character mentions the idea of Cleopatra trying to mess with Hans and him saying, "Oh, I'd like to see her try," which is really what the whole film is about. She does try to mess with Hans, and she tries really hard, and she gets caught, and they really get their revenge in a really grotesque way, but they do, and she deserves it. So, but other than that, like I said, it's just not a horror film, and I feel like that basis was completely on the disabilities of the cast, which is an unfair thing to judge people on. I hate the idea of this film. It's a drama film with a lot of dysfunctionality. I don't recommend this movie to anybody. Hard to watch, difficult to enjoy.